Hey guys, welcome back to One Stop Biology. So in today's video, we are going to cover complex tissues. So let me remind you first that we have started off with chapter 6 of class 11th biology, NCERT. And in the last video, we covered meristematic tissues completely. And then we started off with permanent tissues, wherein we covered simple tissues. Now these simple tissues include parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma cells, right? So, what we studied in the simple tissue is that a simple tissue is made of only one type of cell, right? Now, let's see what exactly are complex tissues. Now, the complex tissues are made of more than one type of cells. As mentioned here, they are made of more than one type of cells, right? Now, these different type of cells work together as a unit. So basically, there are two different kind of complex tissues in plants, which are xylem and phloem. Okay, so let's start with xylem first. Now, basically functions as a conducting tissue for water and mineral, and it conducts it from the root to the stem and leaves. So remember what xylem conducts water and mineral from where? From roots to stem and leaves. Alright. Now this also provides mechanical strength to the plant part. So it's not just the conducting tissue, it also provides mechanical strength, right? So xylem is basically composed of four different kind of elements. Now, what are these elements? So these elements are tracheids, vessels, xylem fibers, and xylem parenchyma, right? So what are the four different kinds of elements which form the xylem tissues? These are tracheids, vessels, xylem fibers, and xylem parenchyma. Now, in the case of gymnosperms, remember, in the case of gymnosperms, they lack vessels in their xylem. So, vessels are not present in the case of gymnosperms. Okay, so let's see what exactly are tracheids. Now, tracheids are nothing but elongated or tube-like. So these are elongated or tube-like cells, and they have thick and lignified walls, and the ends are tapered, right? So if I show you the diagram as well, if I show you this diagram, these are nothing but tracheids. So if you can see here that they are elongated, so they are basically tube-like, thickened, lignified walls. This is the wall, right? So they have a thick wall and ends are tapered, right? Now these are dead. Remember that tracheids are dead and they are without any protoplasm, right? Now the inner layers of the cell wall, the inner layers, so this layer of the cell wall, they have thickening which vary in form. Now, in case of flowering plants, tracheids and vessels, these two are the main water transporting elements. Remember that tracheids and vessels are basically the two main water transporting elements, right? So these basically are tracheids. Now, what are vessels? Let's see that. So vessels are nothing but they are long cylindrical tube-like structure. So if I draw a structure something like this, so basically this is a tube, elongated, cylindrical, right? So these are nothing but vessels. right? So vessel is a long cylindrical tube-like structure and it is made of many cells which are known as vessel members. These are known as vessel members, and these vessel members basically have lignified wall and they have a large central cavity. So what is a vessel? It is a long cylindrical tube-like structure made of many cells which are known as vessel members, and they have lignified walls and a large central cavity. Now these vessel cells again are devoid of protoplasm, right? So these vessel members, these cells, different cells which are present in the vessel, are interconnected through perforations in their common wall. So they have basically perforation in their walls. Okay, and the presence of vessel again is a characteristic feature of angiosperms. Remember that. Now, the third kind of element is the xylem fibers. Now, xylem fibers have very thick wall and they have a central lumen. So, see what exactly they are. They have very thick wall and obliterated central lumen. Now they may be septate or aseptate. So remember that they may be septate or aseptate. Now the fourth element is xylem parenchyma. So the xylem parenchyma cells are living and they are thin walled. Remember they are living and they are thin walled, and their cell walls are made of cellulose. Remember, their cell walls are made of cellulose. Now, what they do exactly? They store food material in the form of starch or fat, right? So, there are different some substances basically like tannins as well. So, they store food material in the form of starch, fat, or even other substances like tannins. Now, the radial conduction of water takes place by the ray parenchymatous cells, right? So, conduction of water takes place by parenchymatous cells, right? Now, let's see how basically the xylem it may be of different types. So, a primary xylem can be of two types. It can be a protoxylem or it can be a metaxylem, right? Now, the protoxylem is basically the first formed xylem. So, the first formed primary xylem elements are protoxylem, and later formed primary xylems are metaxylem, right? So, in the case of stems, the protoxylem lie towards the center. Remember, in the case of stem, and this we'll again study later in this chapter, that the protos in the case of stems, protoxylem lies towards the center, which is also known as the pith, and metaxylem lies towards the periphery of the organ, right? Now, this type of primary xylem is known as endarch. This is known as endarch. So, this is mentioned here, right? Now, what happens in the case of root? So, in the case of roots, the protoxylem, it's basically opposite. The protoxylem is towards the periphery and the metaxylem lies towards the center. And this kind of arrangement of primary xylem is known as exarch, right? So, there can be two types of arrangement, endarch or exarch. This is present in the case of stem. And this is present in the case of root. What happens here? Here, protoxylem. So basically here, protoxylem is towards the center and metaxylem is towards the periphery. What happens in the case of exarch? Protoxylem is towards the periphery and metaxylem towards the center or the pith, right? So with this we complete xylem. Now let's move towards phloem. What exactly is phloem? So basically again, phloem transports food material. So in the way xylem transports water and mineral, phloem transports food material, right? Now basically, now from where does it transport food? In the case of xylem, we saw that it the transport was from the root towards the leaf and flower, right? Now, in this case, it's the opposite. So, here it is from the leaves because leaves basically perform photosynthesis and they prepare food, right? So, usually it is from leaves to the other part of the plant, right? Now, again, phloem in angiosperm is composed of different elements. What are these elements? There are four elements again. The first one is sieve tube element. Then we have companion cells. We have phloem parenchyma and phloem fibers. So as we saw in xylem, there were four different elements. In the phloem of angiosperms, again we have four different elements. And what are these elements? Sieve tube, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, and phloem fibers. Now, in the case of gymnosperms, they have albuminous cells, right? And sieve cells. So they lack sieve tubes and companion cells. Rather, they have albuminous cells and sieve cells, right? Now, sieve tube elements. So, what are sieve tube elements? These are long tube-like structure, right? So, these are long tube-like structure and they are arranged longitudinally and they are associated with the companion cells. So remember how they are differently associated. Now let's just study this with the help of the diagram itself, right? Let's go to the diagram and I'll explain all the elements there, right? So this is the diagram of a phloem. Here if you see, these are the these are the sieve tube elements, right? So as you can see here that they are long tube-like and they are arranged longitudinally and they are associated with the companion cells. So what exactly are companion cells? These are companion cells, right? So they are associated with the companion cells. Now let's move ahead. So the basically, if you see here, their end walls are perforated. You can see here that the walls are perforated in sieve-like manner to form the sieve plate. So basically, this you see is the sieve plate. What exactly is the sieve plate? So these are the pores, right? These are the perforations. These are the sieve pore. And this, the entire plate is the sieve plate, right? Now, what happens next? So basically, the a mature sieve element possess a peripheral cytoplasm and a large vacuole as well. But what they lack a nucleus. Remember that, right? Now, function of a sieve tubes are basically controlled by nucleus of companion cells. So remember that function of these sieve tubes or the sieve plate, the entire sieve element is controlled by companion cells. Now, what are these companion cells? So, these companion cells are specialized parenchymatous cells. Guys, I'll just remind you here that I have already discussed different kind of simple cells, right? Basically included all three kind of cells, which are parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. So if you have not gone through the previous video, I would request you to go through this because I'll not be explaining these terms again and again, right? It will simply waste our time. So the sieve tube element and the companion cells are connected by pit fields which are present between their common longitudinal walls. So they are basically connected by the pit fields which are present. Now the companion cells basically helps in what? It helps in maintaining the pressure gradient in the sieve tube, because you need to transfer food from one place to another, right? So you need to maintain, a particular pressure gradient for that transfer of food, right, to different parts of the plant. So these companion cells basically help in maintaining that pressure gradient in the sieve tubes. Now, what exactly are phloem parenchyma, the fourth element of phloem? So, phloem parenchyma is made of elongated, tapering cylindrical cells, and they have very dense cytoplasm and nucleus as well. So, basically, this green cells that you see are phloem parenchyma. So as you can see here, they are tapered, they are cylindrical cells, they have dense cytoplasm and nucleus. Now the cell wall of phloem parenchyma is made of cellulose, and it has again pits through which plasmodesmatal connections exist between the cells. So basically they are interconnected with each other, right? So the phloem parenchyma basically stores food material and other substances like maybe resins, latex, or mucilage, right? So phloem parenchyma is basically absent in most of the cotyledons, right? So now what happens is basically they store food and they help with energy during the transfer of food within phloem. Now, what exactly are phloem fibers? So, phloem fibers are made up of sclerenchymatous cells. So what are they made up of? They are made up of sclerenchymatous cells, and they are generally again absent in the primary phloem, but they are found in the secondary phloem. So as we have primary and secondary xylem, we have primary and secondary phloem as well. Now these are elongated, unbranched, and they have pointed needle-like apices. Now the cell wall of phloem fibers are very thick, and after maturity or at maturity, these fibers lose their protoplasm and they become dead, right? So you must have seen phloem fibers of jute or flax or hemp, right? These are used for commercial purposes as well. Now, the first formed primary phloem, remember that the first formed primary phloem consists of narrow sieve tubes, and they are referred to as protophlloem. So, again, as in the case of xylem, we have protophlloem and metaphloem. Now, protophlloem is first formed, and this is formed later, right? So the protophlloem, they have narrow sieve tubes, and metaphloem. So they have narrow sieve tubes, and these have bigger sieve tubes, right? So these are the two very important elements that we'll see in the next videos, when we'll see, the diagram of a monocot and a dicot leaf, or diagram of a monocot or a dicot root, wherein we'll study different structures, which includes xylem and phloem as well. I hope you understood the basic structure of a xylem and phloem and what function they perform. That, like, xylem basically transports water and mineral. It also provides mechanical support, and phloem basically helps in transfer of food. Now, since these two different things are generated through different means, the flow of uh, you know water or food is different, right? So do let me know if you have any questions regarding this, and I hope you understood the video. If you have, please do not forget to like this video and please share it with your friends, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you have any doubt as such, please do let me know either through comment on the video, or you can also message me over WhatsApp. The number is given in the description of this video. Thanks guys, bye bye.